Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into something that's been keeping me up at night. Literally. And I mean that in the most unsettling way possible. We're talking about a phenomenon that sounds like it came straight out of a horror story. But here's the thing. People are actually experiencing this. The house numbers change after midnight. Now before you click away thinking this is just another internet myth, stay with me. Because what we're about to explore goes deeper than you might think. So let me paint you a picture. Imagine you're coming home late from work. Maybe it's 1 a.m. You're exhausted. You've driven this route 1,000 times. You pull onto your street, the same street you've lived on for years, and something feels off. You can't quite put your finger on it at first. The streetlights cast the same orange glow. The trees rustle in the same way. But then you look at the houses. The numbers are different. Not all of them. Just some. Your neighbor's house, that was always number 42, is now displaying 47. The house across the street went from 38 to 33. And your own house, the place you call home, its number is shifted to. Your first thought is obviously that you're on the wrong street. Happens to everyone, right? You're tired. You took a wrong turn. But then you notice Mrs. Henderson's garden gnome collection, still there in all its glory. You see the same crack in the sidewalk where you tripped last summer. This is definitely your street. So what's happening? Are you losing your mind? Is this some elaborate prank, or is something far stranger going on? Now I know what you're thinking. This sounds absolutely ridiculous. House numbers don't just change. They're permanent fixtures, screwed onto houses by the city. But here's where it gets interesting. Reports of this phenomenon have been popping up all over the internet for the past few years. Reddit threads, social media posts, even some local news stations have covered stories from confused residents who swear their street addresses are shifting after dark. Let me share some real accounts that people have posted online. One user from Oregon wrote about how they noticed their house number changed from 112 to 117 consistently after midnight, but would return to normal by morning. They even took photos to document it. And in the images, you can clearly see different numbers on the same house, taken just hours apart. Another person from Michigan described how their entire neighborhood seemed to shuffle addresses every night, like some cosmic game of musical chairs. They said it started subtly, just 1 or 2 houses, but over the course of months, more and more addresses began participating in this nightly transformation. There's this particularly chilling account from a delivery driver in Washington state. Their job requires them to work late-night shifts. They started noticing that addresses they'd successfully delivered to dozens of times would suddenly be in completely different locations. A house marked as 73 Oak Street would be where 68 should be. They'd arrive at what their GPS told them was the correct location, but the number on the house wouldn't match. This driver actually kept a detailed log for 2 months, and they claimed it only happened after midnight. So let's try to break this down logically. What could possibly explain this? The skeptics among you, and I respect that, are probably thinking of rational explanations. Maybe it's just reflections or shadows playing tricks on tired eyes. Our brains do weird things when we're exhausted. Pareidolia, the tendency to see patterns where none exist, could make us misread numbers in poor lighting. A 7 might look like a 1, or a 6 appears to be an 8. That's a perfectly reasonable explanation for isolated incidents. But it doesn't account for the photographs. It doesn't explain why multiple people in the same neighborhood report the same changes. And it doesn't address why this seems to happen exclusively after midnight, only to return to normal by morning. Some people have suggested vandalism or pranks. Maybe bored teenagers are switching house numbers around for laughs. But think about the logistics. You'd need to have replacement numbers ready. You'd need to quietly remove and replace numbers on multiple houses without anyone noticing. And you'd have to do this consistently night after night, then reverse it before dawn. Surely someone would have caught the pranksters on camera by now. Then there's the theory about parallel realities, or dimensional shifts. Now we're getting into the really weird stuff. But hear me out. Quantum physics tells us that multiple realities could theoretically exist simultaneously. What if after midnight, for reasons we don't understand, there's some kind of overlap or bleeding between these parallel dimensions? In one reality, your house is number 42. In another, it's 47. Maybe something about the late-night hours, when fewer people are conscious and observing, allows these realities to blur together temporarily. I know that sounds like science fiction, but it's an idea that isn't entirely without precedent in theoretical physics. There's also a psychological angle. The Mandela effect, where large groups of people remember things differently from how they actually occurred. False memories can be surprisingly consistent. But here's what bothers me about that explanation. The Mandela effect typically involves memories of past events. The changing house numbers are happening in real time. People are taking photos, videos, documenting these changes as they occur. That's not memory, that's documentation, unless we suggest the photos themselves are somehow unreliable or manipulated. Let's talk about the timing, because this is crucial. Midnight. Throughout history, midnight has held special significance. It's seen as a liminal time, a threshold between one day and the next. In folklore, midnight is when the veil between worlds is thinnest. Now, from a more scientific perspective, midnight is when human activity is at its lowest. Fewer people are awake, fewer cars on the road, less ambient noise and light. Maybe whatever causes this phenomenon is more noticeable when there's less interference from human consciousness. There are actual studies about how observation affects reality at the quantum level. The observer effect in physics shows that the act of measuring something can change its state. The idea is that our shared reality is somewhat fluid, maintained by collective consciousness. When most people are asleep, small glitches or changes might slip through. House numbers changing could be one of these glitches, like a cosmic typo that gets corrected when everyone wakes up. I want to share another account that really stuck with me. A woman in Ohio posted on a forum about how she first noticed this after her husband passed away. She'd been having trouble sleeping and would sit by her front window late at night. One night around 2 a.m., she watched as her neighbor's house number flickered, like a neon sign, and when it stabilized, it showed a different number. She thought she was hallucinating from grief and exhaustion, but it kept happening. What makes her account so interesting is that she eventually worked up the courage to knock on her neighbor's door during one of these episodes. The neighbor, who was also awake, came to the door, and the woman asked if they'd changed their house number. The neighbor looked confused, stepped outside, and saw their house displaying the wrong number. Both of them stood there, staring at a number that neither of them had put there. The neighbor took a picture with their phone, and the photo showed the changed number clear as day. By morning, it was back to normal. That account raises interesting questions about shared experiences. If two or more people witness the same impossible thing simultaneously, what does that mean? It's harder to dismiss as individual delusion when multiple observers confirm the same details. There have been attempts to study this more systematically, though not by mainstream science. A group of amateur researchers in Pennsylvania set up cameras on their street to record continuously for 3 months. They claimed to have captured footage of house numbers changing. But when they tried to share the videos online, they reported technical difficulties. Files became corrupted, and upload attempts failed repeatedly. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe there's something about documenting this phenomenon that creates its own set of problems. This brings up a question about evidence. In our modern world, we document everything. So why don't we have more concrete, undeniable proof? Some would argue it's because it doesn't really happen. But others suggest that perhaps the same force that causes the numbers to change also interferes with our ability to properly document it. If we're dealing with something that operates outside our normal understanding of reality, maybe it also operates outside our normal methods of recording it. Let me share one more account that offers a different perspective. A man in Texas posted about how he started intentionally staying up past midnight to observe his street. He noticed the house numbers would flicker right at midnight, like a computer screen refreshing, and some would change. It didn't happen every night. It seemed to follow a pattern he couldn't quite figure out. After 6 months of observation, he came to a strange conclusion. The changes seemed to correspond with certain astronomical events, not obvious ones like full moons, but more obscure things like planetary alignments and solar flare activity. His logs showed correlations that were hard to ignore. This raises the possibility that whatever causes this phenomenon might be connected to forces or energies we don't fully understand yet. There's also a sociological aspect to consider. Why are people reporting this now? Is this a new phenomenon, or has it been happening all along, and we're only noticing it now because of the internet? Before social media, if you saw your house number change, you'd probably think you were going crazy and never tell anyone. But now, you can post about it online and find dozens of other people who've experienced the same thing. That validation might be bringing a phenomenon that's always existed into greater awareness. I'm not here to tell you definitively what is causing this or even that it is absolutely real. I'm trying to present the accounts, explore the possibilities, and encourage you to keep an open mind. So what should you do if you experience this? First, document it. Take photos, videos, notes. Second, check with your neighbors. Find out if anyone else is seeing the same things. Third, look for patterns. And fourth, stay calm. Our homes are supposed to be constants. When something as fundamental as your house number becomes unreliable, it can shake your sense of reality. But others have reported feeling curious, even excited by the mystery. If house numbers can change after midnight, what else might be changing that we don't notice? It's a thought that can be liberating in a way. Maybe reality is more flexible than we've been taught. Maybe the universe is weirder and more magical than we realize. I encourage you to do your own research on this. Look up the accounts online, read the forum posts, watch other videos, and most importantly, if you're brave enough, stay up past midnight and watch your street. See if you notice anything unusual. Maybe you'll see nothing. Or maybe, just maybe, you'll see the numbers flicker and change. And you will join the growing community of people who know that something very strange is happening in the quiet hours after midnight. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more explorations into the unknown. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Tonight, we're diving deep into one of the strangest, most unsettling phenomena I've ever come across. It's something that happens in the dead of night, something that makes people question their own sanity and the very fabric of reality. We're talking about the mystery of the changing house numbers. Imagine this. You're driving home late, maybe after a long shift at work or a night out with friends. The streets are empty, bathed in the eerie glow of streetlights. You turn onto your own street, a road you've driven down 1,000 times. You know every crack in the pavement, every tree, every house. You pull up to your home, but something is wrong. The number on your front door, the one you've seen every single day, isn't yours. It's a completely different number. You blink, you rub your eyes, convinced you're who's tired. But no, the number is still wrong. Panic starts to set in. Are you on the wrong street? Did you take a wrong turn? You check your GPS. It says you're exactly where you're supposed to be, but the numbers on all the houses around you, they're all different. Your neighbor's house, number 42, is now 118. The house across the street, number 45, is now 203. It's like your entire neighborhood has been scrambled while you were away. This is the core of the experience that dozens, if not hundreds, of people have reported online in forums, social media, and dedicated paranormal websites. It's a modern mystery, a glitch in the matrix that seems to happen exclusively after the clock strikes 12. Let's look at some specific accounts to really understand how bizarre this is. One of the most famous stories comes from a Reddit user a few years back. He was a pizza delivery driver working the late shift. He was sent to an address he'd been to many times before. But when he arrived, the house number was wrong. Not just his destination, but the entire street. He drove up and down the block, completely disoriented, his GPS insisting he was in the right place. After about 10 minutes of frantic searching, he looked up, and suddenly, all the numbers were back to normal. The right house was right where it should have been. He delivered the pizza, a bit shaken, and the customer didn't mention anything unusual. He was left wondering if he'd had a momentary hallucination. Another story involves a young woman coming home from a party. It was Harun Tuame. As she approached her apartment building, she noticed the large, illuminated number on the front was different. Her building was 1550, but tonight it read 1580. She thought maybe she'd gone to the wrong building, but the street name was correct, and the building looked identical to hers. She even saw her own car in its usual parking spot. Hesitantly, she went inside. The lobby looked the same. The elevator was the same. When she got to her floor, the number on her apartment door was also different. Freaked out, she didn't use her key. Instead, she knocked. A complete stranger answered the door, looking confused and annoyed. She apologized profusely and ran back outside, her heart pounding. She sat in her car, completely terrified. After a few minutes of trying to calm down, she looked back at the building. The number was now 1550. as it always had been. She went back inside, up to her apartment, and this time her key worked. The apartment was empty and exactly as she had left it. What happened in those few minutes? Did she step into a parallel reality? These aren't just isolated incidents. The patterns are surprisingly consistent. The event almost always occurs late at night, typically between midnight and 4 a.m. It often happens to people who are driving or walking home, people who are on a familiar route. The change is not subtle. The numbers are completely different, not just off by 1 or 2 digits. And perhaps the most unsettling part is the return to normalcy. After a period of confusion and disorientation, the world snaps back into place. The numbers revert, and the experiencer is left questioning what they just saw. Was it real, or was their mind playing tricks on them? So, what could possibly be causing this? Let's explore some of the theories, from the mundane to the truly mind-bending. The most obvious explanation, and the one most skeptics jump to, is simple human error. Tiredness, stress, or even mild intoxication can affect our perception. Maybe the pizza delivery driver was just exhausted after a long shift and misread the street sign. Maybe the woman coming home from the party was on the wrong block and just didn't realize it in her panicked state. Our brains are fantastic at filling in the gaps and making us see what we expect to see. It's plausible that in a state of fatigue, our brains could jumble information, especially something as mundane as house numbers. However, this doesn't fully explain the vividness and detail of these reports. Many experiencers are adamant they were wide awake and clear-headed. They double-checked. They used their phones for confirmation, and the discrepancy was undeniably real to them. Another psychological explanation is a phenomenon known as a hypnagogic hallucination. These are vivid sensory experiences that can occur as you're falling asleep or waking up. They can feel incredibly real. Could it be that these drivers are experiencing a sort of microsleep at the wheel? A brief, momentary lapse in consciousness, where a dreamlike state takes over. It's a possibility, but again, it doesn't quite fit all the stories, especially those where the person is out of their car, walking around, and interacting with their environment for several minutes while the phenomenon is occurring. Let's move into more speculative territory. Could this be a type of localized glitch in the Matrix? This theory posits that our reality is not as solid as it appears. Perhaps it's a simulation, or a construct of consciousness, and occasionally, the code gets buggy. The numbers on houses, being data points in this reality, could momentarily fail to load correctly, displaying placeholder data or a jumbled mess before the system corrects itself. This sounds like science fiction, but it's a concept that some physicists and philosophers take seriously. In this view, the changing house numbers aren't a hallucination. They're a brief glimpse behind the curtain, a look at the raw, unrendered data of our world. It's a fascinating and terrifying thought. Then there's the parallel universe or timeline slip theory. This suggests that for a brief moment, the person slips into a nearly identical parallel reality, a reality where the streets are the same, the buildings are the same, but the civic planning was just a little bit different, leading to a different numbering system. The person exists in this alternate reality for a few minutes before slipping back into their original timeline. This would explain why their key doesn't work, or why a stranger answers the door of their apartment. They aren't in their apartment. They are in the alternate reality version of it. This theory is impossible to prove, of course, but it aligns perfectly with the subjective experience of feeling like you're in a place that is both familiar and utterly alien at the same time. Before we wrap up, I want to address the skeptics directly, because I know many of you are rolling your eyes at this whole thing. And that's fine. Skepticism is healthy and important. But I'd ask you to consider this. Just because something sounds impossible doesn't mean it is. Our understanding of reality is limited by our current scientific knowledge and our own perceptual capabilities. There are colors we can't see, sounds we can't hear, and potentially, phenomena we can't easily detect or measure with current technology. The people reporting these experiences aren't all crazy or lying. Many of them are confused, some are frightened, and most are just looking for answers. Dismissing their accounts without any investigation or consideration isn't scientific. It's just being closed-minded. True skepticism means being willing to investigate claims, not automatically rejecting them because they don't fit our current worldview. So where does this leave us? Honestly, with more questions than answers. The phenomenon of house numbers changing after midnight remains completely unexplained. It could be perceptual errors. It could be elaborate hoaxes, though the consistency across so many unrelated accounts makes that less likely. It could be psychological in nature, or it could be something genuinely anomalous that challenges our fundamental understanding of reality. We just don't know yet. And that's okay. Not everything needs to be immediately explained or boxed up. What we can say is that people are experiencing something. Whether that something is external and objective or internal and perceptual, their experiences are valid and worth investigating further. Maybe someday we'll have a concrete explanation. Maybe scientists will conduct a systematic study and determine exactly what's causing these strange slips in reality. Or maybe this will remain one of those persistent mysteries that defies an easy answer. A little reminder that the universe is far stranger than we can possibly suppose. If you have experienced this phenomenon yourself, or something similar, please share your story in the comments below. The more accounts we can gather, the better our chances are of finding patterns, and maybe, just maybe, getting closer to understanding what's really going on. And if you haven't experienced it, maybe keep an eye out tonight after the clock strikes 12. You might just find that your familiar street isn't quite as familiar as you thought. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the weird and unexplained, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We explore all kinds of strange phenomena, mysteries, and things that make you question reality. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss our future videos. And remember, the world is stranger than you think, especially after midnight. Stay curious, stay skeptical, but most importantly, stay open. I'll see you in the next one.